I'd like to start this meeting by recognizing the homeland of the 30 First Nation communities of this area we now call the Fraser Valley Regional District, where we live, work, and learn. Important decisions that we make at a local government level can affect First Nation communities and Indigenous peoples and organizations in many different ways, both today and in the future. So as part of our collective responsibility, I commit that we continually examine the work we do to ensure that our projects, plans, initiatives, and discussion are guided by the principles of inclusion, collaboration, and reconciliation. So with that in mind, I'd like to call to order the January 12th, 2023 meeting of the Electoral Area Services Committee. And I will turn things to Ms. Kinham.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. So the first item on the agenda is your report on the Regional and Corporate Services Committee meeting.
Good. We had a very busy meeting this morning. I think most of us attended, either than Director Davidson and maybe Director Wardenberg. Yeah, so I will give a slow motion replay at RACS. We talked about the mosquito program. There was considerable interest in it. There was a number of questions surrounding the technology and logistics of the program. Also, there were questions to staff regarding the handling of public complaints during mosquito season. We talked about freedom of information, reporting out for requests for access. Questions surrounding the availability of FOI information to the general public were posed to staff. Staff pointed out that there's an overriding need for personal confidentiality regarding FOI. The issue came up of Director Adamo's nomination or seeking nomination for BC representative to FCM. And staff addressed the virtue of having local representation of the FERD and the province of BC at the federal level, ensuring that there's good representation federally of Canada's western provinces. And reports from directors. Director Dixon gave an update on the controversy around the compost deposit problem up at Columbia Valley. Director Facio suggested that a resolution should go to LMLGA in Harrison Hot Springs this spring regarding the need for provincial control of compost sites, which was strongly supported by the directors at the committee. Director Makahonic reported out on the Chilliwack River Valley cleanup of an abandoned homeless site area that over the holidays. The RACS directors were very supportive of the need for the province to be made aware that it is not the responsibilities of the electoral areas to care for the Crown lands. And that is my report. Does anyone have anything else to add to that? Good. So turn things back to our CEO.
Looking for approval of the agenda, addenda, and late items.
Motion, Director Johnson, second, Director Adamo. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
5.1 is the Harrison Mills Neighborhood Plan, and we have a staff presentation by David Bennett.
Great. Welcome, Mr. Bennett.
Thank you, Director Dickey. So I'll start with a short introduction. My name is David Bennett. I am the planning lead on the project. I'm coordinating the work of the planning consultant, Urban Systems Limited. But I'm just part of the FERD team. Working with me are Seeb, Graham, and Caitlin from planning, as well as the FERD engineering team, parks, strategic planning, communications, have all contributed to the work thus far. So today's presentation is about the Harrison Mills Neighborhood Plan, the work that's been completed, and our next steps. We're seeking board direction before we go further. We're now over a year into the neighborhood plan work, and this presentation is to provide background for our new EA directors who may not be familiar with the project or the plan area. So a little bit about Harrison Mills. So the study area is an existing community in Electoral Area C. It's home to the Sandpiper Golf Course, residential developments, Sasquatch Pub. There is a community water system and a community sewer system. The area is a salmon stronghold. It includes vital eagle and raptor habitat. Recreational, environmental, and community amenities need to be integrated and coordinated with compatible land uses. Comprehensive servicing is needed to address community water and sanitary needs, and a neighborhood plan will develop policies for technical reporting and public review of future rezoning applications within the planned area. Now, the environment is an important and reoccurring theme that we heard from the public. The environment is central to our neighborhood planning process. We know that the area supports 7 species of salmon and is a salmon stronghold at the confluence of 3 major rivers, the Harrison, Fraser, and the Chehalis. Harrison Mills is an area with highly valued ecosystem components that warrant protection, stewardship, and careful consideration when responding to development pressures. This map shows known raptor nesting sites in and around Harrison Mills. We're working with a local biological experts at the Hancock Wildlife Foundation on additional studies to assist with the understanding of the area's raptors and to grow the body of knowledge of the area's environment. There is a community plan in place right now, and that plan is now over 20 years old. And over the past 20 years, the vision of the area has been achieved. Today, landowners, in particular the Sandpiper Golf Course, have expressed redevelopment interests to increase housing, expand the resort, and to increase tourism. And a neighborhood plan is essential for orderly and sustainable community planning and should be adopted before considering major redevelopment applications. So this map might be a little hard to see. This is the major redevelopment concept that the Sandpiper Golf Course presented to the community in 2019. Urban Systems re-illustrated it, but this is based on what Sandpiper had proposed back then. So Sandpiper being, I don't know if you can see my cursor, I have a cursor, is the majority of the lands in Harrison Mills. It was built in the mid-1990s and sold in 2016. In 2019, the new owners presented a redevelopment concept. FBRD staff reviewed that concept and determined it would be a major official community plan amendment to accommodate their residential and resort expansion ideas. They were presented with 3 options to proceed in a pre-application letter. 1, proceed with a site-specific rezoning and OCP amendment. 2, wait for the regional district to undertake a neighborhood plan process within our work plan. Or 3, if they wanted to advance the timeline, to undertake the neighborhood plan with funding by themselves and undertaken by the regional district. So Sandpiper reviewed those 3 options and agreed to fund a neighborhood plan process to advance the timelines. The board resolved for staff to prepare a request for proposals for professional planning services to develop a neighborhood plan, because this was outside of our work plan, based on the funding from Sandpiper. Why would Sandpiper agree to this process? Is because it advanced the timelines. There's no other benefits implied with them funding this proposal. Doesn't guarantee any outcomes. A couple more board resolutions here. The board authorized staff to execute the contract with, it's called Diana Properties, which is Harrison, it's the Sandpiper Golf Course, for the funding, and to enter into a contract with Urban Systems for the consulting services for the development of the neighborhood plan. So what does that mean? So Sandpiper agreed to the neighborhood plan funding. Board directed staff to issue the RFP for the work. RFP was accepted and Sandpiper fully funded the neighborhood plan before we undertook the work. We then entered into the contract with Urban Systems, and we've been working with Urban Systems since the fall of 2021 on the neighborhood plan process. So I'll go over our work plan. So when we introduced the project, we launched a website, had an initial community survey, sent letters to area stratas, and provided community newsletters in hard copy form to the neighborhood. In the identifying what matters stage, we undertook technical reporting. So looking at geohazards, archaeological resources, riparian assessments. We initiated engagement with the Chehalis and Scowlitz First Nations. And because it was during COVID, we held 2 virtual community meetings. Those were events number 1 and 2. And the first meeting, which was an overview, just to present the idea of what a neighborhood plan is to the neighborhood and to identify community concerns and priorities. The second meeting that we held presented the results of the community survey, and we discussed the 5 emerging themes that came out of that survey, being housing, land use, environment, tourism, and impacts on community infrastructure. Setting the vision during the winter of 2022, we held 2 more public meetings, this time in person. The first meeting included a presentation on the technical reports that were prepared. And then we broke out into group discussions to discuss those emerging themes: housing, environment, land use, tourism, infrastructure. 3 conceptual land use scenarios were prepared. And at our second meeting, we reviewed those land use scenarios and led to the development of a preferred land use plan and initial policy directions. In the preparing concept stage, we held a 5th public information meeting to present what we had heard from the community and for them to review the draft land use plan concepts. We're now in the drafting the plan stage, and it's nearing completion, where we have a draft land use plan and a draft concept plan. And we're also undertaking additional environmental reporting with the Hancock Society. And this has led to this presentation and to seek board's approval to support moving forward with servicing component, which is sort of a next step. What have we heard so far? So we've had input from 5 community meetings, community survey, as well as the technical reports that have been undertaken. And we know that the environment is the most important consideration for land use planning in Harrison Mills. So designing with nature in mind means that the planning policies would support things like clustering developments away from sensitive habitat, developing away from the foreshore and riparian areas, preserving tree stands, and reducing pressure on sensitive areas. So on this slide, this is just an illustration of some of the concepts and ideas that we heard during those meetings. There's a image there of some sticky notes, and that's where we populated ideas that we heard through some of our roundtable discussions. So this is the draft land use plan, and this is the key map of a neighborhood plan. It illustrates the location of potential future land uses, and it was developed from neighborhood feedback and shaped by the physical constraints of the landscape. The land use plan considers neighborhood and stakeholder feedback, housing choices and affordability, pedestrian trail networks and access to crown land, environmentally sensitive areas, areas of archaeological significance, neighborhood amenities such as green space, parks, and land use transitions between different land uses and built forms. Draft land use plan will continue to be refined. This is still draft, but at this time, staff are seeking that the board receive this draft land use plan and direct staff to undertake the next step, which is a local servicing plan. I'll talk about that in a bit. To go along with the land use plan, it might be covered here, but this is our conceptual plan, and it illustrates things like pedestrian connectivity between development nodes, the location of highway intersection improvements, transit connectivity, where ecological sensitive areas are, such as wildlife corridors, foreshore, Elbow Creek, foreshore management areas and riparian zones. And this is also a plan that will continue to be refined based on public input and new information, like the reports that we're getting in from Hancock Society. So what's next? So work in the winter of 2023 will include the development of policies to support the land use plan. We'll hold a 6th public information meeting to present the land use plan and these policies, finalize our secondary environmental report, develop the local servicing plan, and to continue have engagement with First Nations. We're now seeking FERD board direction to proceed with the servicing review. So local servicing plan is a technical component of the neighborhood plan itself. It's informed by the draft land use plan and the concept plan. It identifies servicing needs, capacity, and options to provide services to the neighborhood. It will also identify the number of systems that we will need. So do we need 1 or 2 sewer systems, 1 or 2 water systems? The feasibility of establishing these new services, as well as cost estimates. Costs associated with the local servicing plan are approximately $42,000. And following completion of the local servicing plan, we would then enter into the pre-design of wastewater servicing needs, which has a significant cost. So it's therefore important to have the board's direction to proceed with a local servicing plan based on the land use plan before we go any further. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Bennett. I will open things up to directors who would have any questions or comments. Director Wardenberg.
Yeah, I guess, I want to start off, just, letting some people know that, I am a resident of, River Reach Estates, which is directly affected by this plan. I have been in, and been part of this process, through these meetings. And I want to, just thank, staff, for all their effort. Yeah, like I say, it's been a long road, I'm sure, for everybody here, everybody that's been involved in this project. It started, I don't know how to say that, how to say this, but, it started, oh, with a lot of, opposition, you might say, and, a lot of fear probably from the residences, and, with the help of staff, and through their diligence, they've done a great job in listening to the people and providing, and through their feedback of the people that were involved, to come up to this point. And yeah, again, I thank everybody. The project has, yeah, my full support going forward. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Wardenberg. Director Castle.
Through the chair to staff, I just want to pick up on the last thing that you were talking about with regards to next steps after the local servicing plan. It says following the completion of local servicing plan, pre-design of wastewater servicing needs will be undertaken. The costs for the pre-design are significant, which is why it's important to get the board's direction. The $184,000 price tag for the next step, the wastewater servicing needs, is that included in the contribution from Petty Estates, or is that going to be a cost that's incurred by the regional district?
That was included in the RFP as part of that. So that's been included with the funding from Sandpiper.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Castle.
No question.
Director Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Bennett, for your report. It's great to have this out here today. It may be in here, I'm trying to find it, but if this were to go through, how many units or housing are we talking about adding to this area?
Yeah, that's a good question. What's missing from this draft version of the plan is the housing unit numbers. And hot off the press from this morning, I can fill you in on some of those. So in the yellow polygon in the middle that says low density residential, that's intended for single family and potentially duplex form.
Okay.
It matches a single family dwelling of about 40 to 50 units. Down at Beach Camp in the orange polygon there, townhouses and apartment units ranging from 40 to 50 townhouses to 70, 90 apartment units. These are all just ballpark estimates.
Yep, fair enough.
And then within the resort, the land uses that would be supported there would be along the lines of what's already at Sandpiper in terms of tourist accommodation. And we don't have any numbers on bed units.
Okay, no, that's great. Thanks for that.
Good. Thank you, Director Dixon. So, Mr. Bennett, I was just curious, the procedure, the process to go from a neighborhood plan to an official community plan.
Mhm.
How would this evolve?
So out of this process, what will happen is a draft neighborhood plan will be prepared. And that plan would then be presented to the regional board as a bylaw. And that bylaw would be either appended to the existing official community plan for electoral area C, or depending on timelines, another version of the electoral area C OCP if it gets adopted in the meantime. This would be an appendices to it and adopted by bylaw.
Good. And then any changes in use would require rezoning afterwards.
That's right. So the neighborhood plan sets in place the policies and land use direction for future rezoning applications. So if an area in the neighborhood plan is identified as low density residential, a future rezoning application that's consistent with that could be adopted. However, if a rezoning application came back for high density multi-story apartment buildings, that would be inconsistent with the neighborhood plan.
Which would require an OCP amendment.
Yeah, we have to redo everything.
Yeah. Good. Good. Seems like a very successful process. Director Adam.
Through the chair to the staff, thank you very much. This was the first full report that I've had the pleasure to read, and I was just blown away. Details terrific. The whole process was extraordinary. I'd like to be able to see something like this take place in my area if we didn't have such a different type of structure. But my question would be, what's the timeline on this? So from start to finish now, you have one more public hearing, which would be number 6. And then where do you go from there? And what is the process in terms of how much longer
Mhm.
it would take to move forward?
The development of the plan itself, we estimated between 18 to 24 months. So we're still within that timeline. The plan, once it's prepared and presented to the board, requires it going through those bylaw reading processes. And that could have at minimum a 6-month process to it, depending on the level of public engagement we need to undertake at that point too. Could tack on another 8. Not quite there yet.
Yeah.
We hope to have the plan prepared in 2023. Bylaw adoption would come after.
Thank you.
Good, thank you, Director Adamo. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, we will thank Mr. Bennett once again. Very nice presentation and move on.
So Chair Decky, we did put the item on the agenda with the motion for your consideration related to the Harrison Mills Neighborhood Plan.
Great, thank you for advising me of that. Motion, Director Forsberg, second Director Dixon. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
Next is 5.2. We have implementation of the secondary dwellings in electoral areas policy, and we have a staff presentation by Andrea Antefeas.
Greetings, Ms. Andrea.
Thank you, Director Dickey. My name is, or good afternoon to everyone first. My name is Andrea Antefeas, and I'm a planner in the Electoral Area Planning Department. I'm here today to talk to you about the implementation of the secondary dwellings in electoral areas policy that was adopted in 2019 by the FPRD board. First, I want to talk to you about a little bit of a nuance here. So you'll see my presentation is calling accessory dwelling units. To remain consistent with existing language that's in the zoning bylaw related to accessory residences for employee and personal care use, and also with other jurisdictions, we're now referring to secondary dwellings as accessory dwelling units, also known as ADUs. The implementation of ADUs into the zoning bylaw will help to facilitate the regulation of dwelling units, which may otherwise be constructed illegally without the benefit of permits or inspection. What are accessory dwelling units? They're an additional dwelling unit located on a property, which is accessory to the principal residence. They're a separate living unit with its own entrance, bathroom, sleeping and living area, and cooking facilities. There's 2 main types of accessory dwelling units. Those would be a secondary suite, which would otherwise known as a basement suite, so located within the principal dwelling unit, or a detached dwelling. Other common names for these would be a coach house, so a living suite above a garage. You could have a living area adjacent to a garage, or you could have a dwelling unit that was independent from any garage space. How did we get here? So this process has been going on since 2016. In 2016, we launched the secondary dwelling study, which involved community engagement with a series of public open houses in each electoral area and a public survey. From that public survey, we heard key concerns, which included minimum lot size requirements, restricting the size of the accessory dwelling unit, and mitigating privacy and nuisance concerns such as setbacks and off-street parking. From 2017, 2019, we've been doing jurisdictional reviews of other municipalities and regional districts. We've done a servicing analysis. We held a Electoral Services Committee workshops with the EA directors to discuss the topic. And from that, we created a policy framework, and ultimately the policy was adopted in 2019. In most recent years, we've been working towards the consolidated zoning bylaw, and now that the zoning bylaw has been adopted, we feel it's the right step to move forward with the implementation of accessory dwelling units. Some highlights from the current adopted policy are parcel size. So for an accessory dwelling unit, in the policy, it states that it would be an outrighted permitted use on parcels that are zoned for residential use that are greater than 1 hectare. For parcels that are between 0.5 hectare and 0.99 of a hectare that are zoned for residential use, It would be a streamlined rezoning process. The policy also contains a size restriction, which came from the BC Building Code, which actually the size restriction there no longer exists, and I'll talk about that a bit later. But the size restriction recommended then was 90 square meters, which is approximately 969 square feet, or 40% of the habitable floor space of the principal dwelling unit, whichever is lesser. What we want to implement into the zoning bylaw would include the definition of accessory dwelling units, permit accessory dwelling units outright on parcels greater than half a hectare when connected to community water, and outright on parcels greater than 1 hectare. Develop regulations related to accessory dwelling unit size and off-street parking. The intent of the policy from 2019 was to keep accessory dwelling units accessory to the principal residence, as opposed to having a typical size dwelling in addition to the principal residence. We want to encourage potential diversification of housing stock, rental options, and mortgage helpers. We recognize that affordable housing options need to be available for families as well as single-person households. Our review of other jurisdictions has found that there has not been a consistent approach. The current policy size restriction came from the BC Building Code. Since the adoption of the policy, the BC Building Code has eliminated the size restriction for secondary suites. Right now, we plan to propose for secondary suites, which are located within your principal dwelling's footprint, no size restriction, as the house would already have been constructed or would be proposed to be constructed, as this allows for a diversity of flooring types and accommodates various demographics. For detached accessory dwelling units, such as a coach house or a granny suite, which is at gray, one option is to stick with what the policy recommended, which is 969 feet squared, propose no restriction, or we thought of a compromise, which would be approximately 1,200 square feet. At 1,200 square feet, we feel like this would provide a modest 2-bedroom home with a living space, a kitchen, and a bathroom. This maintains the accessory use of the detached accessory dwelling unit, allows for a diversity of floor types, accommodates various demographics, and also could be reasonably serviced. Proposed changes to the policy. So for parcels that are half a hectare to 1 hectare in size, so that's 1.23 acres to 2.46 acres in size, the current policy recommends that this size of parcel would go through a rezoning process. And our recommendation is to eliminate the rezoning process and outright permit it when those parcels can meet the minimum levels of service, which is connection to a community water system and either connection to a community sewer system or on-site sewage disposal system, which is either shared with the existing principal residence or an independent system. We just wanted to highlight what else is in the policy regarding other parcel size. So as briefly mentioned, so parcels that are greater than 1 hectare, the minimum level service is an on-site supply. So these parcels could be connected to community water or have their on-site system themselves through a well. For sewage disposal, they would have on-site sewage disposal system, shared or independent, or if there was any case where they could have connection to a community sewer system. The policy supports future bylaw amendments to allow accessory dwelling units on these size lots. The policy is to guide what happens with the zoning bylaw. For parcels that are less than half a hectare, the minimum level of service would be community water system and a community sewer system. For these parcels, we would recommend a rezoning process where applications are considered on a site-specific basis and deliberated on their own merit. The current policy was cautious regarding servicing constraints. We have reviewed the number of parcels with residential zoning that are located within our water service areas and determined the number of lots that this would apply to, this change in the policy. So from this table here, you can see in Yale, there would be 2 lots that would be within this criteria, and both of those lots already are connected to our water system. In Morris Valley, there are 0 lots within this threshold. In Area D, we have 14 lots, which 12 of those are already connected to our water system. In Bell Acres, we have 8 lots. The direction for Area E would be that the implementation in this electoral area would be on hold until the Chilliwack River Valley Public Safety and Risk Assessment was completed. In Hatzick, we have 7 lots and 6 of those currently are connected to the water system. In DeRoche, we have 4 lots and 4 of those currently are connected. In Cultus Lake water system, we have 0 lots. And this is a total properties from the water systems that we operate for parcels that have zoning, is 35 properties total. We've spoken with the engineering department and the impacts of the water system are minimal given the number of properties that would fall into this threshold for property size. We are currently in the process of exploring how user fees for accessory dwelling units are established and charged by reviewing other jurisdictions and working with the engineering department. Our estimated timeline for implementation is right now we're working on bylaw regulation development, and we anticipate having a draft bylaw amendment to the board for first reading in March. We're from April to August. These timelines are all approximate as well. So we're going to be conducting jurisdictional reviews. We've already started doing this, looking at utility user fees, doing some industry consultation. We would go to the public with a formal public hearing for the bylaw amendment and also have to receive ministry approval from the Ministry of Transportation. In the fall, we would have to do utility fee bylaw amendments. So this would set out what user fees would be charged for properties that construct accessory dwelling units on them, and then board approval for bylaw adoption. I wanted to conclude by saying accessory dwelling units provide many benefits to owners, tenants, in the community. These benefits include affordability, efficient use of housing stock, aging in place, housing diversity, intergenerational living, and gentle densification. Additionally, the introduction of ADUs in the zoning bylaw could help to address the gaps identified in the housing needs report. It's timely for the implementation of accessory dwelling units now, as the zoning bylaw has been adopted, and to provide consistency with member municipalities and other neighboring regional districts. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Ms. Antefeyev. Any questions, comments from directors? Director Adam.
Quick, through the chair to staff, quick question. So what have we done to find out about all the existing ones? Did I miss that somewhere? Like all of the existing ones that would perhaps be non-compliant, and would we try to get them on board? Is there some type of a process to be doing that?
So through the chair to the director, Admiral, we would have to worry about that. So in my report, it stated that, for example, in the subdivision of Minter Gardens, that there is recent building permits. I believe the number was 13 or so, and each building permit that came in there appears to have what is a secondary dwelling unit or secondary suite within it. Unfortunately, the zoning bylaw, how it defines a dwelling unit, they have a wet bar instead of a full kitchen. And so that's the criteria for it. It would be very hard to get everyone that's created one of these accessory dwelling units within their existing primary residence or separately on their property to come into compliance at this time. But moving forward, it would be a way for us to ensure that permits were issued and inspections were completed so that health and safety standards were being met.
Thank you.
Good, thank you, Director Adam. Okay, I'll get you. Thank you. Going back a number of years when we first began talking about this idea, the subdivisions where people went in with the understanding that there would not be secondary suites in the homes, they showed no appetite for including that afterwards. And so what staff talked to me about is moving forward the new subdivisions, allowing that right up front so people realize when they're buying their homes that this will be allowed. But going back now, that's a very difficult thing to allow to happen in existing subdivisions, it seems. Yeah. Thank you for your comments, Director Adam. I see Director Davidson has got his hand up. We'd forgotten about you. Nice to see you, Hugh. What have you got for us today?
A couple questions through to staff. Noticing the policy date on this was 2019, so I'm casting my memory back to what was going on and what was yet to happen in the last term. But one question anyway, I do have two. One's on alignment with ALR regulations on ADUs. And I'm assuming whatever we're doing here is aligned with wherever the ALC looks like they're going. Staff have any comments on that?
So through the chair to Director Davidson. So parcels that are located within the ALR would have to abide by the regulations put forward by the Agricultural Land Commission. So those conditions could be different than the conditions that we're imposing. So I believe the Agricultural Land Commission has a threshold for size restriction that is smaller than what we are proposing. So this application would be for any parcels located outside of the ALR lands.
Okay, thank you. Additional question or comment. I'm looking at the staff report and it makes the comment that as it relates to water, and water is always a concern for my area. It says we are also working with engineering to understand the capacity of FERD community water systems. I'm also getting a lot of echo back on this for some reason. I'm not sure why. But anyway, the challenge, of course, is that the majority of residents here aren't on water systems. They're on private wells. And there's already work underway to better understand our aquifers and how resilient they're going to be to climate change and the impacts of increased demand on the aquifers that presumably greater population would bring. So I have no concerns about the policy changes themselves and the implementation, but the implementation timeframe is a concern. For Area F, I would be wanting to defer any implementation until such time as we do have a better understanding of the aquifer, and that's work that's currently underway. Does staff see any challenges with essentially carving us out as a to be done later kind of zone? Thank you.
It appears we're bringing in Mr. Nagy to
Through the
address
chair
this.
to Director Davis. That's certainly something we could explore. Right now, one of the things that we do realize that people are building secondary suites, whether we permit it or not. So some of the challenges with water systems or whether it's sewer systems in other communities is that regardless of what's in the bylaw, the capacity is being utilized, whether it's illegal, legal. But that's certainly something we could consider with you and have another meeting with you in the coming weeks to understand that better and bring it forth in an upcoming meeting in March.
Thank you, because I know that the simple reality is that we're not expecting a water model earliest 2025, and hopefully the water model will give us good news. But if it doesn't, yeah, and until I got some sort of decision aiding, data-driven decision-making advice from that water model, I just can't support the timeline for Area F. It's too early for us.
Good.
But thank you.
Director Davidson. Certainly, excuse me, Director Dixon. Certainly, this is a exercise that's been sought for a very long time amongst many of our directors, and we would like to see it move forward as quickly as possible, and hope at the same time that you can accommodate Director Davidson's concerns. Yeah, Director Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Sandy Faith. A couple questions I have that are, you said one that new developments going forward would potentially include secondary suites as an approval. So I have a development in my area on Sleepy Hollow that was has been approved, but not with the intention of secondary suites. Can that does that hold, or can they suddenly just change midstream? Or sorry, the development hasn't been it's in the works.
Through the chair to Director Dixon. So I believe the application you're talking about is at the end of Sleepy Hollow Road. Those parcels there would be smaller than half a hectare. So the implementation of the policy changes that we're talking about wouldn't outright permit it in there. But the guide that we'd like to move forward with is when properties are being rezoned for future development of smaller lots than half a hectare, that at the time of rezoning, we explore the opportunity for secondary dwellings at that
Okay.
time, rather than have the subdivision already be developed and then it becoming a problem.
All right, no, so that's fine, but so this one's already been rezoned and we've had
That's
public
correct.
hearings that didn't discuss.
Right,
this-
so
this
if
piece.
they were to want to have accessory dwelling units, they would have to go through a rezoning process
Okay,
given their parcel
Thank you
size.
for that. And if I may have one more, what about parcels that are less than, I guess, half, they're on half acre, because those exist in Parkview as well. They're in that area. And so if somebody wanted to do this properly, is there an option for that as well?
So through the chair to Director Dixon, the idea behind that would be the same as if it was a large scale development. So individual parcels that are smaller than half a hectare in size could have the opportunity to apply to rezone, and each application would be decided upon on their own merit. So we would look at servicing issues,
Right.
servicing constraints for those size parcels. There would be a neighborhood mail out, so the community would have input into that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Director Dixon. Director Wardenberg.
Yeah, I just want to follow up with that. I would imagine that the same process, sorry, through the chair to staff. I imagine the same process would be if a parcel meets the size but doesn't meet the water criteria, then you would have to go through the rezoning process as well. Is that correct?
Through the
Like-
chair
like,
to,
let's-
oh, sorry.
Oh, go on, go ahead.
So through the chair to Director Wardenberg, there would be minimum levels of service. So for a parcel that was half a hectare to 0.99 of a hectare, the minimum level of service would be connection to a community water system. So the policies would be supportive of that. It wouldn't be supportive of a parcel that was between half a hectare to 0.99 of a hectare, having an ADU if it wasn't connected to a community water system. So for the parcels that are smaller than half a hectare, the minimum level of service would be connection to a community water system and to a community sewer system.
So just to clarify then, what if a parcel does not have a connection to water or sewer and is less than 0.5?
So the
what-
policy that's currently in place wouldn't be supportive of that.
So it's-
So an
it's-
application could be made and we would rely on FERD policies and bylaws to determine if there would be support for that type of application. Any application on a parcel less than half a hectare would have to determine that there was feasibility for it to have a community water connection and a community sewer connection.
Okay, so just to be clear, so there's no way that somebody with an existing parcel that does not have water, that's less than 0.5 of a hectare, and is not on water, like with most of Lake Europe or sewer system, would not be able to apply for a legal secondary suite.
That wouldn't be what would be permitted. So that would be a process they could apply for, and they would have to demonstrate that there was feasibility for that. Anyone has the right to make a zoning amendment application, and those applications are considered on their individual merit. So when the zoning bylaw would contain specific thresholds for parcel size and minimum levels of service, when someone made a rezoning application for a parcel smaller than that, it wouldn't be meeting the zoning bylaw requirements. So they would have to demonstrate why they felt or how it's feasible for them to have those types of accessory dwelling units on their property if they can't meet the minimum levels of service. There would be no support in any bylaws or regulations to support that type of development on those small parcels if they don't have community water and sewer connections.
And that process would mean a public hearing for sure.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Good, thank you, Director Wardenberg. Director Adams.
Yeah, sorry, one more thing through the chair to staff. Is there a minimum requirement for this, or is there a requirement that states, you mentioned the 1,200 square feet, which would be your average 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom. What if someone, I've worked on many homes in this area, and most basement suites are already 1,300 square feet that could easily be converted into 3 separate 400 square foot, basically, bachelor pads. Is there an allowance for that or not, or is that something that they couldn't apply for?
Through the chair to Director Adamo, the idea would that be that you would be allowed to have one accessory dwelling unit, whether it be a secondary suite within your principal residence or a detached accessory dwelling unit on a property per property.
Thank you.
Good, thank you, Director Adamo. I do not see any other requests for information only. Thank you for a most comprehensive report, Ms.
Thank you.
Fayef, and very, very nice presentation. Yeah, much appreciated. Bring things back to Ms. Kinnaman.
Sure. So moving to 6.1, which is the draft Electoral Area Services Committee meeting minutes of December 8th, 2022.
Okay, for motion, move Director Wardenberg, second Director Johnson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
7.1 is the 2023 grant and aid request for the Fraser Canyon Hospice Society in Electoral Area B.
For a motion, move Director Adamo, second Director Johnson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
8.1 is the Fraser Valley Regional District Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 1680 for a 14-lot subdivision at 9868 Thompson Road in Electoral Area D.
Okay, motion, move Director Dixon, second Director Wardenberg. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
8.2 is a covenant to tie 2 lots for sale at 4108 and 4118 Slessie Road in Electoral Area E.
Good. Looking for a motion. Move Director McMahonic, second Director Castle. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
Moving down to item 10, reports by staff. I just wanted to take this opportunity to introduce the committee to our newest staff member. Bill Ozeroff is the manager of building inspection. He is joining us from the far reaches of Langley, Abbotsford, Coquitlam, Maple Ridge, etc. And I know he very much is enjoying his new commute from Abbotsford to Chilliwack. So welcome, Bill.
Welcome, Mr. Ozeroff. Yeah, this is certainly the area of the valley you want to be in if you do a lot of driving. Yeah. So.
Could you use the microphone, please?
Oh, sorry.
There we go. We'll get
Sorry, Dr.
second-
Davidson.
Get a replay here. Mr. Allen.
Oh, apologies. Yeah, I'm just saying, very impressed with the quality of people that I've met here so far in my first several days. And I look forward to working with you and all of the residents in the Fraser Valley Regional District that we serve.
Great. That's wonderful to hear, and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Any comments from directors moving forward?
Next
please?
item is reports by board directors.
We'll start off with Director Castle.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. Happy New Year, everybody. Prior to the Christmas break, I met with principals of both Dudney and Deroche Elementary Schools with our electoral area trustee, Shelley Carter, and also Director Wardenberg. Our discussions included traffic safety around both of the schools, school composition and capacity, and food security within the school communities. Deroche Elementary School has a hot breakfast program for all students and an optional lunch program offered to all students as well. It was stressed at how important the meal program has become to the communities and how it has improved student behavior and learning. The schools have identified 10 families, 5 from each school, that could benefit from receiving services from St. Joseph's Food Bank and Mission. And together with the support of the food bank and local business leaders, we are working to have hampers delivered from the food bank and Mission to families in Area G who have accessibility issues. We'll be working to have the hampers delivered directly to the families of the residents. I'd like to thank Lisa Lacey for initiating the meet and greet at the schools, and to St. Joseph's Food Bank for offering the support to our electoral areas. Area G did not receive the amount of snow that some of your areas did during the Christmas break, but we did get a lot of strong winds, which caused major drifting throughout areas of Nacoman Island that made keeping the roads clear practically impossible. Calls for service that came to me directly were fairly few in number, especially when talking to some of my colleagues in the city of Mission. And I'm happy to report that in all cases, when I reached out and shared residents' concerns with the Ministry of Transportation directly, not the contractor, those who made the calls for service reported speedy reaction times and positive levels of satisfaction when I followed up. One issue that did come up, though, was the inability of our volunteer firefighters to get from their homes to the fire hall, and in some cases, unable to get into the fire hall itself due to snow and ice. I shared those concerns with the Ministry of Transportation, who asked for specific roads that were integral to the fire department's ability to respond. And within an hour, a truck was on the job, and our Modi contact offered his contact info to the fire chief directly, which I was kind of shocked that he didn't already have that info, but it made Chief Howell very happy to have that contact. I had the opportunity to meet with North Fraser Fire Department Chief Howell and Assistant Chief Bars with the goal to establish open communication and build relationships. The big takeaway for me was the demand on our volunteer fire department, who are seeing around 500 calls for service a year. We have a department of about 40 members who are responding to approximately 500 calls a year. Communication with area directors was the main request of the chief going forward, and we agreed to meet on a monthly basis with the hopes of having directors Wardenberg and Davidson join us. I'd like to give a shout out to Curtis Stevens, who just celebrated 35 years with the North Fraser Fire Department, and Gerard Bars, who is celebrating 25 years. Thank you to those two gentlemen for their service to our community. We're looking forward to our second meeting with Emergency BC and other stakeholders happening next week as we work through establishing the recovery table to address the impacts and causes of flooding in the Hatsic Lake watershed. I've been hearing concerns from residents along the Fraser River in Nokomin Island with regards to some erosion that is happening at a pace faster than perhaps expected. I went for a walk myself and was shocked at how the river has changed in a very short amount of time. And I'll be going back out with members of the Nokomin Island Improvement District on Saturday with my rubber boots on to get a better understanding of the situation before meeting with FERD engineering staff next week. Just a heads up to staff that we will need to be addressing the urgent nature of doing the work needed to protect some of the most valuable agricultural lands in the province, not to mention residences and private property throughout the entire Nokomin Island. And I just want to stress what I saw along the banks of the Fraser in Nokomin Island this week freaks me out. The freshet this spring could very well turn this into a preventative maintenance project to an emergency project this spring. I also, once I have a better understanding, will be reaching out to Minister Alexis. Of course, she is the MLA for that area and the agricultural minister. I want to give a shout out to the community of Desroches for a successful fundraiser at the Desroches Community Hall on December 17th, which saw over $20,000 raised to support a family who's experiencing some major health challenges. And I want to extend best wishes to Colin Faulkner and his family as they work through these challenges. We'd like to invite everyone to join us at the Desroches Hall on February 11th for a fundraiser dance hosted by the Sasquatch Lions Club. There are still a few spots left on my dance card if anyone would like to come out and cut a rug with me for a good cause. And for those of you who have two left feet, the Sasquatch Lions are holding their regular Texas Hold'em tournament at the Desroches Hall on January 28th. If you'd like more details, you can follow the Sasquatch Lions on Facebook. That's all.
Good. Thank you, Director Castle. Director McElhonick.
How to follow that one. Anyway, I did share earlier, but just again, and I neglected to thank staff. So I just really want to thank Jennifer for taking the time to meet with me and discuss some things. And the support around some of the issues that we don't have support on, like the tipping issues and things like that. So I really appreciate it. And Graham has been a great resource and help to me. And I'm going to be doing a little bit of work with Tarina as well. And then everybody else has just been very helpful. So I just wanted to make sure. I still feel a little nervous when I'm reporting. So anyway, so what I've been up to has been a little busier than I had anticipated over the holiday period. Ross Aikenhead, who many of you know, he's kind of a one person hero when it comes to garbage cleanup in the Fraser Valley. Anyway, he contacted me, and we did a garbage cleanup, the Global TV for December 28th. He arranged it, and we did a cleanup on the 28th. And Global TV reached out to me ahead of time, so we met there. And community members, including my husband, I mean, they worked tirelessly, and it was cold and really icy that morning. And there was a huge amount of garbage taken out. So there was 12,660 kilograms of garbage. The following day, on the 29th, they went back and they took out 1.5 megatons of metal, plus the Ford Econoline RV from the abandoned site past Allison Pool. Since there's been 5, and then as of yesterday, maybe 1 more, so maybe 6 abandoned sites. None is as big as this, but still, I know that he's working, trying to get some help from the province through Mike Peters. And I've also, through all of that, I think the media helped it. The Global TV, the next day I did an interview with Vancouver Sun, and was reached out to by the BC Minister of Housing and our local MLA, Kelly Patton, and asked for a meeting. Chair Jason Lum joined us, and we were able to bring some of the concerns forward. Sort of through this process, I was asked to provide tipping permits for the dump, and I thought, oh, I didn't know about that. So I checked with the former director, and he told me this is how it's done. So I went ahead, and then when I mentioned it to Jennifer, found out that we actually don't have funding. This is something that's kind of flown under the radar. So something we brought up with the Minister of Housing. So the Minister of Housing promised that he would be meeting, putting together a group. We talked about the complexity of the issues on rural housing or homelessness, and some of the things that are going on, and how it needs to be different ministries that, I really see that, everybody's doing the best they can, but even within ministries, there's finger pointing and people, it's not mine, it's this person, it's this person. In the meantime, the problem isn't resolving. It's actually not even being managed very well. And so I think we can do better. And so we're hoping to hear back soon. I did talk to Mayor Popov yesterday too. So I think we're really going to have to find some grant funding through our residents association, and really hope the province comes through with some tipping fees. Because one thing about going to media, I've had some great response from people from my past work with the BC Wildlife Federation and other groups wanting to come out and do cleanup now, and we don't have tipping fees. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. I don't want to say no, because we really need this work done and we have willing people. So that's an issue. I'm not sure how we're going to resolve it in a timely manner. I think we'll resolve it. I just don't know how quick. So that's been happening. So the fella that we had a neighbor got burned out of his home. Usually somebody would go through emergency services, but the person was deaf pretty much and lost their hearing aids, so he wasn't able to go through regular channels. And so I've probably worked a lot more closely than I would regularly. So had my Ann Davis team go out and help. And then my dad passed away in August, so he had hearing aids, so we actually brought out his hearing aids and he's bringing them. So just going the extra mile, literally. And the fellow's 80 and he's had a really hard time, but he's insured, but he can't even do business when he can't hear. So it's been
a little more complex in some of these things. I've been on January 5th, 6th, and 9th, I've been able to meet with residents that have been impacted by flooding and slides with Daniluk and or not, sorry, Danilus, and just it's really difficult sometimes to hear people they're dealing with that, and then other personal things as well. But it's nice to know that we are actually moving forward and that there is work it started yesterday. So I'm really pleased about that and being able to give people some good news. We've had some issues with well-meaning residents plowing the road and taking off all the de-icing chemicals and making for more dangerous road situations. So I heard from staff and I was able to get that out, and then we've got that out quite well, I think. And then some mud and rocks and things like that. Yeah, so just been quite busy, and I've talked to MLA. He's our Minister of Transportation now, Dan Coulter, as well, about some of the road issues to do with rural homelessness as well. So I think that's probably it for me. And I just want to thank everybody for helping me navigate uncharted waters and being patient, and also some of the other directors that have more experience than me being available for calls and some guidance. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Makahonic. You will jump to Director Davidson.
Thank you, Chair. Just before I forget, through to Director Makahonic, Mission Environmental Stewardship Society applied for and received a grant and aid from Electoral Area F just to cover their tipping fees. They do a lot of great cleanup work as well. So yeah, it's certainly a route that I'd recommend. A couple other things like Director Castle, looking forward to the meeting, the Hasek Watershed Recovery Table meeting on this Tuesday, I think. It was interesting to learn from staff in response to the Atmospheric River event. We do have one service area, Cascade Carrot diking area, where regional district has the mandate to deal with sedimentation. And they've essentially pulled out more sedimentation in 1 year. Let me get the numbers right. I know I'll be close, but the typical number is we pull out about 10,000 cubic meters every 4 years. In response to this one atmospheric river event, pulled out over 40,000 cubic meters in 1 year. And that just shows the extent of how it's hit us. And I know that that's kind of a segue into what the Ministry of Environment is doing right now. They're actually working with a company and reaching out to residents to survey some other water streams to see what the impact of the atmospheric river event was as it relates to sedimentation. And we have to see, I mean, we know it's this information gathering stage at this point. It's pretty telling when we know that it's taken this long to get to it. And that's just reflective of the damage, it's in the regional district, this regional district, and the Merritt and Princeton areas that have just basically been overwhelming provincial staff that are trying to get to this. So we'll see what will happen. We're looking forward to something, but we'll carry on. Other than that, I think that's pretty much it. So yeah, thank you.
Yep, thank you, Director Davidson. Director Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple updates. I attended a couple of fun Christmas events in my area. I was at the Cultus Lake Church, and it was just a community Christmas concert put on by some of the talent in our area, which was a lot of fun. It was a great night, as well as Christmas and cookies and cocoa with Santa. That was up in Columbia Valley Hall. And again, another just well-attended community effort. And they're just trying to build community. So that was fun. On December 28th, I had received an invitation to be part of the army, I guess. And so I was able to observe the exercise Paladin Response, which is put on by the Department of National Defense. And it was a big deal. It's up in Cultus Lake and in Area H. And so more than 250 reserve soldiers from across Canada joined 39 combat engineers, and they were building bridges at their armory out on just off Keith Wilson, but also they were building rafts on Cultus Lake. So I had a chance to be out there and on the raft and watch the boats maneuver around and hook it all up, and just really great work. Super passionate group of people that are out there trying to learn how to look after us in times of need. And a lot of what they do is train for some of the disasters that we've seen, and so that's when they can be called upon. So that was interesting, and really, really happy to see that I got that invite. So that was great. Just a repeat performance, just really quickly, because everybody wasn't here this morning and maybe there's new listening. We're still got a lot going on with the unauthorized landfill in Columbia Valley. The the community concerned citizen group has reached out to the media this week. And so there have been a lot of pickup from that, and there will be some stories coming out. And again, the ongoing concerns are it's leaching into our aquifer, which is our water source, is potentially damaging Cultus Lake, and there's toxic fumes in the air every time it burns. So we shall see what goes on with that, but really thankful for the work of FVRD supporting us, but also with the community members, because they just haven't let it go, and having their support is huge. And then finally, looking already forward to summer traffic and congestion. I had a brief meeting yesterday with BC Parks and Modi, just around a little bit of summer planning and improvements that have been made over the winter. So more to come on that. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Dixon. Director Wardenberg.
Thank you. Yeah, pretty good holiday, a little bit slow for me. I did have a chance to meet with a couple of First Nations representatives in the last couple of weeks, just listen to their concerns. Also meeting with one of the Lake Huron Community Association chair quickly here, I think later today. And yeah, that's about it. And thank goodness that the snow is gone. It was a very challenging period of time, I'm sure, for everybody. I did have a chance to meet with staff, park staff, regarding the different ideas coming up in Area C regarding our parks and trails, and had multiple occasions to walk the trail, Eagle Point Community Park, which they did some beautiful improvements. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Director Wardenberg. Director Adam.
Thanks. And Director Wardenberg, your snow may be gone, but ours hasn't really even begun yet. So if you are missing it, feel free to come up to the Sunshine Valley at any time. We had a pretty good last month. The Yale ratepayers conducted their first since COVID Christmas dinner that our past member Dennis Adamson ran and did a very good job with that. So it was great to see them come out and reestablish their Christmas dinner program for the community of Yale. I got to attend something with the Mayor of Hope, Mayor Smith, and it was a groundbreaking in a house in Hope called Kwas, Kwas, which is after the name of a woman that has been a longtime resident there. She has donated her land and her home and the property to a new nonprofit organization to create a housing facility that is manned and ready to take care of children that are adults with special needs, as well as seniors in need that will be up and coming. So they're obviously in their fundraising stage right now, but everything has been approved with the District of Hope. And it was great to see an organization like that come together as a need that was something very well required in our community, and it will support all of Area B as well as the District of Hope as well. So I'll give you some updates on that as time moves along. Still have not met with two of our prominent chiefs, Chief Hansen and Chief Florence. However, that is in the works, and we plan to meet at the end of January. We have cell towers coming to Sunshine Valley, supposedly. One cell tower is about to be installed. They've not given us a timeline, but our local developer has been working and provided some land with our other local business to provide an established area that Rogers seems to be happy with right now. So We'll have more information on that. That is not something that will just support Sunshine Valley specifically. It'll support the entire highway corridor between Manning Park and the Hope Slide, where there is absolutely minimal to no service right now. So that's something that's well needed from an emergency response point of view, as well as for the community itself. So we'll also give you some updates on that. Had a couple of meetings with our stakeholders group within the Sunshine Valley and with the Ale ratepayers as well. So things are moving along, and yeah, it's quite nice. People are being really nice to me for a little while. So I'm enjoying that. Thanks. And thanks once again to the staff during our cold snap and all of the snow that hit the district and Area B. We did a great job. I know we had to shut down our facilities for a couple of days due to the conditions, but it was well understood, and also for allowing the Hope Community Center to be a warming station and an overnight station as a cold center for that period of time. That was greatly appreciated by our community as well. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Director Adamo. Director
One
Johnson.
more thing, sorry, one more thing. Just that here's my Highway 3, Highway 1 PSA. We had a near fatality yesterday, 4th one in the last 7 days. If you're out driving in these conditions, don't, unless you absolutely have to, either be prepared or slow down. You are putting our volunteer fire department at great risk at calls at 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, midnight. And we're now having to shut down highways and bring in helicopters to get people out. So please slow down. The winter is only beginning in our area. So be safe and don't drive if you don't have to. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Wardenberg. We had a meeting about winter highway conditions with Emil Anderson. I believe it might have been in November or December, and they said, do not go on Highway 3. It's the Wild West. Yeah. Director Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Well, for Area A, the usual issues with snow removal, equipment that was broken down actually at the top of our driveway, and short-staffed. Anyway, they've had some difficulties for sure. And then besides the snow removal, there were road closures with avalanche assessments and some slides. Couple of power outages, thanks to a couple of trees on our property that took out the power for 19 hours the first time and then 30 hours the second time. And the last one also took out my landline. So that's been out for about 3 weeks. And just yesterday, I decided to check for messages. And even though my work number is posted in our update, I had 14 messages. So no wonder it was quiet. Anyway, some of the things have resolved on their own, so that's okay. The rest I'll get to. I was also invited to an AGM for the Landfill Society, but that was canceled due to the weather. And I did fulfill my duties as judge for the Boston Bar Band for their Christmas decorated houses. So that was fun. And last time I wasn't sure about Stuff the Cruiser and the exact amount. I hadn't been told, but it turns out that our community actually came up with $3,130 for the food bank and 124 pounds of food. So for a small community in a depressed area, I was pretty impressed with the generosity. And that's about it. Thanks. Oh, no, that's not. One other thing. Thank you very much to our CAO, Jennifer, for interrupting her time away and dealing with emails that came from my area. So thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Johnson. And I don't think I have anything to report on in my electoral area. Just one comment that I'd make is I was speaking with Director Wardenberg about the real estate sales levels. I've now they're 21-year lows right now, and just might be interesting how this might impact our building departments and our engineering and planning departments. So I've been here a long time, and it's just been a continual boom in real estate and home construction, it seems. So maybe we'll actually get a chance to catch our breath and do some of the things that we haven't had time to do in the past. Hope it doesn't get a lot worse though. Good. Okay, I will turn things back to our CAO.
So now we're in public question period for items relevant to the agenda, and we'll just turn things over to our corporate officer, Jamie Van Ness.
Thank you. Good afternoon. We do not have any members of the public joining us in our boardroom today. We do have one member of the public on Zoom with us today. This would be your opportunity to just hit the raise hand function to ask a question relevant to the agenda. I'll just give this person a moment. And it would appear our lone member online does not have a question, and we can move on to the next item.
Good. Thank you. Which would be
Looking for a motion to adjourn.
motion. Director Dixon, second Director Adamo. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Contrary? Motion carries.
Thank you.
You, staff.
Thank you
and
very much.
You directors. Welcome to 2023.
Bye, everybody.
See you.